But we discussed many things. One of them, obviously, was North Korea. We discussed Venezuela. We discussed Afghanistan and the Middle East generally. We had some very good meetings, some very good ideas, very good thoughts, and a lot of decisions were made. This was a very important day, actually. Made a lot of decisions. With that, if you have any questions, yes?
Make any decision on Afghanistan, whether to add additional...
Yeah, we're getting close. We're getting very close. It's a very big decision for me. I took over a mess, and we're going to make it a lot less messy. But that has been a place, 17 years, our longest war, as I read in one of your columns. And frankly, it's going to be a decision that's going to be made very soon.
And do you have full confidence in your national security advisor?
Yes, I do. General McMaster?
Yeah.
Absolutely. He's our friend. He's my friend, and he's a very talented man. I like him, and I respect him.
Sir, why did you decide to announce the transgender ban reversal a couple of weeks ago? And are you betraying a community that you pledged to support?
No. Look, I have great respect for the community. I think I have great support, or I've had great support from that community. I got a lot of votes. But the transgender, the military is working on it now. They're doing the work. It's been a very difficult situation. And I think I'm doing a lot of people a favor by coming out and just saying it. As you know, it's been a very complicated issue for the military. It's been a very confusing issue for the military. And I think I'm doing the military a great favor.
Mr. President, do you have any response to the Russian president expelling 755 workers from our embassy?
No, I want to thank him because we're trying to cut down on payroll. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm very thankful that he let go of a large number of people because now we have a smaller payroll. There's no real reason for them to go back. So I greatly appreciate the fact that they've been able to cut our payroll for the United States. We'll save a lot of money.
Mr. President, was it appropriate for the FBI to raid the home of Paul Manafort pre-dawn?
I thought it was a very, very strong signal or whatever. I know Mr. Manafort. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but I know him. He was with the campaign, as you know, for a very short period of time, relatively short period of time, but I've always known him to be a good man. I thought it was a very, they do that very seldom. So I was surprised to see it. I was very, very surprised to see it. We haven't really been involved. Excuse me?
Have you spoken to the FBI director about it? Or the?
No, I have not. I have not. But to do that early in the morning, whether or not it was appropriate, you'd have to ask them. I've always found Paul Manafort to be a very decent man. And he's like a lot of other people, probably makes consultant fees from all over the place. Who knows? I don't know. But I thought that was a very, that was pretty tough stuff.
Mr. President,
to wake him up, perhaps his family was there. I think that's pretty tough stuff.
Mr. President, speaking of the Attorney General, how would you categorize your relationship currently with Attorney General Sessions? Have you guys spoken about some of the differences you've had in the past?
It's fine. It is what it is. It's fine. He's working hard on the border. I'm very proud of what we've done on the border. I'm very proud of General Kelly, what he's done on the border. One of the reasons he's my chief of staff right now is because he did such an outstanding job at the border. We're down 78%. Nobody thought that would be. I mean, in the old days with other administrations, if you were down 1%, that was considered a big thing. We're down 78% at the border, and nobody thought that was possible. So I'm very proud of General Kelly. He's now chief of staff. At the same time, I'm very proud of what we've done over the last 6 months between Supreme Court, between tremendous amounts of legislation that's been passed. You know, we had 42 to 48 bills passed. I'm not talking about just executive orders. I'm talking about bills passed. We had massive executive orders. We got rid of record-setting amounts of regulations, and a lot of it is statutory where it's a 90-day period, then you have to wait, then it's another 90-day period, you have to wait 30 days. Much more is coming out. And I believe in regulation. You have to have some regulation, but we're going to have a small percentage of regulation compared to what we have. And I think that's why you see business enthusiasm's the highest it's been in 18 years, why unemployment is the lowest it's been in 18 years. I mean, the unemployment rate just came out. It's the lowest it's been in 18 years. And with that being said, we have companies moving into the United States, whether it's Foxconn, you saw the two large auto companies moving back. Probably they'll go to Michigan, but they're negotiating with various states. We have done a lot in a short period of time, so I'm very proud of it. I think that General Kelly is going to be a fantastic chief of staff, however.
Mr. President, are you going to increase the U.S. military presence in Asia?
We are going to look at what's happening in Asia. We're looking at it right now. We're constantly looking at it. I don't like to signal what I'm going to be doing, but we are certainly looking at it. And obviously, we're spending a lot of time looking at, in particular, North Korea. And we are preparing for many different alternative events at North Korea. If, he has disrespected our country greatly. He has said things that are horrific. And with me, he's not getting away with it. He got away with it for a long time between him and his family. He's not getting away with it. It's a whole new ballgame. And he's not going to be saying those things, and he's certainly not going to be doing those things. I read about we're in Guam by August 15th. Let's see what he does with Guam. He does something in Guam. It will be an event the likes of which nobody's seen before, what will happen in North Korea.
And when you say that, what do you mean?
You'll see. You'll see. And he'll see.
Is that a
He will see. It's not a dare. It's a statement. Has nothing to do with dare. That's a statement. He's not going to go around threatening Guam, and he's not going to threaten the United States, and he's not going to threaten Japan, and he's not going to threaten South Korea. No, that's not a dare, as you say. That is a statement of fact.
Mr. President, can you talk about the nuclear posture and what your priorities are there?
Yeah, nuclear to me, number one, I would like to de-nuke the world. I know that President Obama said global warming is the biggest threat. I totally disagree. I say that it's a simple one. Nuclear is our greatest threat worldwide. Not even a question, not even close. So I'd like to de-nuke the world. I would like Russia and the United States and China and Pakistan and many other countries that have nuclear weapons, get rid of them. But until such time as they do, we will be the most powerful nuclear nation on earth by far. The first order I gave to my generals, as you know, Mike, my first order was I want our nuclear arsenal to be the biggest and the finest in the world. And we spent a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of effort. And it's in tip-top shape and getting better and getting stronger. And until such time as this scourge disappears, we will be so much better and so much stronger than anybody else. And nobody, including North Korea, is going to be threatening us with anything.
Sir, what specifically have you changed in the nuclear arsenal? And the reason I ask is that a lot of experts yesterday, in response to your tweet, said that modernizing the arsenal takes many years. It can't be done in 6 months. It's a long process that's only just begun.
We've done a lot of modernization, but we've done a lot of renovation. And we have it now in very, very good shape. And it will be in much better shape over the next 6 months to a year.
Mr. President,
It's a very important thing. Actually, it was the first. Military is very important to me. As you know, I did extremely well with the military vote, Mike and I. But my first order was we have to do the military, but before we do the military per se, we're going to do the nuclear. And we are in very strong shape. We are going to be increasing our budget by many billions of dollars because of North Korea and other reasons having to do with the anti-missile. So we are going to be increasing our budget by many billions of dollars. We'll probably be able to report that over the next week. As you know, we reduced it by 5%, but I've decided I don't want that. We're going to be increasing the anti-missiles by a substantial amount of billions of dollars.
Mr. President, can you share with us your latest thoughts on Iran, speaking of nuclear goods, and whether you feel like they are in compliance or will be in compliance?
I don't think Iran is in compliance. We wrote them a very tough letter to the Congress. I personally don't think they're in compliance, but we have time, and we're going to see. We also put down a lot of defaults or potential default situations. I don't think they're living up to the spirit of the agreement. President Obama, in his wisdom, gave them $150 billion. He gave them $1.8 billion in cash, that's a hard one to figure. but that was his decision. I think it's a horrible agreement, but they are not in compliance with the agreement, and they are certainly not in the spirit of the agreement in compliance. And I think you'll see some very strong things taking place if they don't get themselves in compliance. But I do not believe they are in compliance right now.
Mr. President, what's the latest on the leak investigation that the Attorney General announced late last week? And is there any separate investigation that you're
Yeah, sure, we're
overseeing at the
looking.
White
We're
House?
always looking. You have two leaks. You have the leaks coming out of intelligence and various departments having to do with Syria, having to do with all sorts of different places, having to do, frankly, with North Korea. And those are very serious. And then you have the leaks where people want to love me, and they're all fighting for love. Those are not very important, but certainly we don't like them. Those are little inner White House leaks. They're not very important, but actually I'm somewhat honored by them. But the important leaks to me, and the leaks that the Attorney General is looking at very strongly, are the leaks coming out of intelligence, and we have to stop them for the security and the national security of our country.
Mr. President, you're passing notes to the special counsel, Bob Mueller. Can you talk a little bit about what those?
No, not notes. We're working with them. I mean, we have a situation which is very unusual. Everybody said there's no collusion. You look at the councils that come in. We have a Senate hearing. We have Judiciary. We have Intelligence. And we have a House hearing. And everybody walks out, even the enemies. They said, no, well, there's no collusion. There's no collusion. So they're investigating something that never happened. There was no collusion between us and Russia. In fact, the opposite. Russia spent a lot of money on fighting me. And if you think about it, I want a strong military. You see our budget is up by, it will be hundreds of billions of dollars soon, our military budget. Russia doesn't like that. Hillary was going to cut the budget substantially, the military budget. Russia is very important for Russia, oil and gas. We are now an exporter because of an incredible 6 months that I had, an exporter of oil and gas. That's bad for Russia. I always said, I don't think Russia wants me because I want a strong military and I want low energy prices. Energy is a disaster. Low energy prices is a disaster for Russia. Additionally, it seems that Russia spent a lot of money on that false report, and that was Russian money. And I think it was Democrat money, too. You could say that was collusion. Plus, the Democrats colluded on the Ukraine. So they colluded. And then when you get down to it, why isn't the FBI looking at the DNC server? You have a server that the Democrats refuse to give to the FBI. Now, I don't know how the FBI can investigate something if the DNC, the Democrats, refuse to give the server. So we have an investigation of something that never took place. And all I say is work with them, because this is an event that never took place. Now, as far as somebody else where did they file the right papers or did they forget to file a paper? You know, I guarantee if you went around and looked at everybody that made a speech or whatever these people did, that's up to them. Did they do something wrong because they didn't file the right document or whatever? Perhaps you'll have to look at them, but I guarantee you this, probably a lot of people in Washington did the same thing.
Mr. President, given your harsh criticism of Democrats just now, how are you going to bring them in on things like infrastructure or health
Well, we'll
care
have to
reform?
see. I'm not sure that we will bring them in. I mean, maybe we'll bring them in, maybe not. I think the infrastructure bill will be bipartisan. In fact, frankly, I may have more support from the Democrats. I want a very strong infrastructure bill. We've, as of this moment, spent over $6 trillion in the Middle East. As far as I'm concerned, when I say spent, we've wasted $6 trillion in the Middle East, and yet we can't fix our roads and our bridges and our schools and our airports. And I think that's a very sad situation. So I'm very strong on infrastructure, and a lot of Republicans are, but I know a lot of Democrats are also. I think that'll work out. I think it's going to work out very well.
Mr. President, have you thought about or considered leading the dismissal of the special counsel? Or is there anything that Bob Mueller could do that you would send you in that direction?
I haven't given it any thought. I mean, I've been reading about it from you people. You say, oh, I'm going to dismiss him. No, I'm not dismissing anybody. I mean, I want them to get on with the task, but I also want the Senate and the House to come out with their findings. Now, judging from the people leaving the meetings, leaks, but they leave the meetings all the time and they say, no, we haven't found any collusion. There is no collusion. You know why? Because I don't speak to Russians. Look, I won because I suppose I was a much better candidate than her. I won because I went to Wisconsin. I went to Michigan. I won Pennsylvania. I fought a smart battle. That's why I win. I didn't win because of Russia. Russia had nothing to do with me winning. The thing that we had a great team, and I guess I did a good job. And you know what? Honestly, they spent much more money than I did by a lot. You know that. They spent a lot more money, and honestly, they did not do a very good job of campaigning.
And one more question about Senate Leader McConnell. You talked about him outside a little bit earlier, but have you reached out to him since your phone call yesterday?
No.
And have you given any consideration to asking his wife, your transportation secretary, to help bridge whatever?
Elaine is doing a very good job. We're very proud of Elaine as Secretary of Transportation. As you know, as you said, Mitch's wife. She's doing a very, very good job. I'm very disappointed in Mitch. But if he gets these bills passed, I'll be very happy with it, and I'll be the first to admit it. But honestly, repeal and replace of Obamacare should have taken place. And it should have been on my desk virtually the first week that I was there or the first day that I was there. I've been hearing about it for 7 years. So repeal and replace should have taken place. The tax bill, tax cuts, tax reform, hopefully they get that done. I hope they get it done. And the other thing would be the infrastructure bill. In addition to that, we've passed a lot of things. We passed accountability with the VA. We've passed a lot. We're doing a lot of great work at the VA. And we're doing a lot of great work all over. You look at what's happening with the coal industry, where they're putting on. I mean, I looked at West Virginia the other day. I was in West Virginia making a speech, and they are doing great as a state. The great governor of West Virginia, Jim, who you saw, he just became a Republican. He left. It's the first time in many, many years that a thing like that's happened. He just left the Democratic Party, and he became a Republican, which was a great moment. Hasn't happened in many years. So we're very, very happy with what's happened. We think it's been an incredible 6 months. We've done, a lot of record-setting business. It's incredible. You look at what's going on with the economy, and to me, very important, you look at the enthusiasm of businesses. You look at companies moving back in. You just saw on Friday the 2 big car companies that are coming in. You saw last week Foxconn. They make the Apple iPhones. They make all of the desktop. They're the biggest in the world. They're coming into Wisconsin with an unbelievable plant like we've never seen before. And I actually said to Tim Cook of Apple, I said, Tim, I won't consider myself successful as president unless I see you start building those big, beautiful plants that you have all over China. You start building them in the United States. And he's going to do that.
Mr. President, you were critical of the intelligence in the run-up to the Iraq War. Should we trust the intelligence now we're hearing about North Korea?
Well, it's different intelligence. I have Mike Pompeo. I have great confidence in him. That doesn't mean I had confidence in his predecessor, okay? Which I didn't, actually. Although he did say good things about me. He did say he had no information or no anything on collusion. So I shouldn't maybe say that, but I will say it. But I have tremendous confidence in Mike Pompeo. Dan Coates, fantastic. I mean, we have people. I think your new head of the FBI is going to be, I think I've done a great service for this country. I think that Christopher will do a fantastic job as the head of the FBI. So, look, nobody has greater respect for intelligence than Donald Trump. But you have to have the right leaders. I think we have great leaders right now. And, you can look at the intelligence over the years. It was intelligence that got people to make one of the worst decisions ever made in the history of our country going into Iraq. Because they said there were no weapons. You look at it. It ended up being there were no weapons of mass destruction. They said, if you listen to them, weapons of mass destruction were all over the place, but they were not there. That was intelligence. I have great respect for intelligence as led by the people that I have in charge now. We have great people, and I think it's going to lead us to tremendous victories, and that's what we need.
What is that intelligence telling you about North Korea and the nuclear?
It's telling me a lot of things, but, you'll probably find out about it before anybody else, right?
Well,
with your leaks. We got to stop the leaks. The leaks are very dangerous for our country. But no, I have great respect for the intelligence community, and I think with the leadership we have right now, hopefully it'll be a very, very successful 8 years for this country, and then after that we'll continue onward. But we have a lot of things we have to straighten out. You have the Middle East. You have North Korea. We have a lot of places of tremendous conflict and tremendous danger for this country. I will say getting the 15-0 vote at the United Nations from the Security Council the other day, that's something that very few presidents would have been able to get. And I have great respect for the fact that China and Russia went along with it. That was a tremendous day for the United States. I think it'll have a strong impact on North Korea. I don't know that it'll be the end all, but I think it'll be I think it'll have a big impact on North Korea and what they're doing. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks.
More tough talk there from President Trump. He's at Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, New Jersey, with some of his top advisors there in a national security meeting covering a range of topics. We're trying to keep up in our notes here and doubling down, of course, on some of that tough talk against North Korea as tensions have been ratcheting up over the last couple of days. Let's try to walk through some of the highlights of that wide-ranging 20-minute press conference President Trump just gave. We've assembled a crack team here across D.C. and in New Jersey and over at the Pentagon. Let's start in Washington, D.C. We've got Alex Malin and John Santucci there. Over at the Pentagon, Stephanie Ramos. And, of course, with the president in Bedminster, New Jersey, is our own Catherine Falders. Stephanie, I got to go over to you first, though, because on North Korea, we've been talking about this a lot over the last couple of days, ever since the president first issued that fire and fury remarks. He's not backing down. We'd said that there maybe the consensus would be that he could try to de-escalate some of that conversation. That is not what we see happening here.
You're absolutely right, Amna. We are not seeing the president back down. The back and forth continues. I mean, wow, some really strong words from the president just a few moments ago saying that North Korea has disrespected our country, with me not getting away with it, and that this is a new ball game. It sure is. It is definitely a new ball game. You know, we've heard these threats from North Korea for years now. This is nothing new, but right now they have different capabilities, and that's the newness to this, and also a new president who continues to make these statements, as you mentioned just about a day or so ago, where President Trump said that the U.S. would meet North Korea with fire and fury. That in response, and then North Korea responded saying that they're going to fire 4 missiles toward Guam, a U.S. territory, by mid-August. So it seems as though this is getting worse and worse. But here at the Pentagon, what we're hearing is that despite this heightened rhetoric, there is no elevated U.S. military status. It doesn't seem as there are no signs here that the U.S. will be first to launch any sort of attack. Of course, the military is always ready to deploy at a moment's notice. They are ready to fight. But as far as any new plans or missions being put in place because of this recent back and forth between the president and North Korea's leader, we're not seeing that here. But we have heard from Secretary of Defense Mattis, who has said that he wants to go about this, that the U.S. will go about this diplomatically. And he actually called President Trump's comments and his efforts diplomatic yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. But again, here at the Pentagon, what we're hearing is that they are trying to keep this diplomatically and not moving forward with any sort of plan of attack just now. But of course, the military is always ready to deploy. So we'll see what happens. But definitely some strong words from the president just a few moments ago.
Absolutely. And in case you missed any of those words, here's sort of the key section in which he was answering a series of questions about strategy and approach towards North Korea. Let's take a listen to that and then talk about it on the back end. Here it is.
And we are preparing for many different alternative events at North Korea. He has disrespected our country greatly. He has said things that are horrific. And with me, he's not getting away with it. He got away with it for a long time between him and his family. He's not getting away with it. It's a whole new ballgame. And he's not going to be saying those things, and he's certainly not going to be doing those things. I read about we're in Guam by August 15th. Let's see what he does with Guam. He does something in Guam. It will be an event the likes of which nobody's seen before, what will happen in North Korea.
And when you say that, what do you mean?
You'll see. You'll see. And he'll see. He will see. It's not a dare. It's a statement. Has nothing to do with dare. That's a statement. He's not going to go around threatening Guam, and he's not going to threaten the United States, and he's not going to threaten Japan, and he's not going to threaten South Korea. No, that's not a dare, as you say. That is a statement of fact.
All right, so guys over in the D.C. Bureau, Alex Mallon and John Santucci, talk to me about this a little bit, because this is not at all fit in the same tone of the walking back of the fire and fury comments that we saw from Secretary of State Tillerson and Secretary of Defense Mattis. This is Trump doubling down and tripling down, basically saying, let him do it. Let him do what he said he's going to do, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, Amna, this is one of those rare moments where earlier today when we saw the tweets from the president saying that we have these nuclear weapons, we don't want to use them, but we can if we will. It's a weird moment where his tweets are a little ratcheted back when his rhetoric is the complete opposite. Usually we see his real feelings from the Twitter account and not so much in person. But you're right. We've now seen this president twice today, once outside his Bedminster compound, which was the home of his transition, really hitting back hard, saying that he will go at North Korea with all the force of the United States if they cross this red line. The difference, though, and Alex and I were talking about this a little earlier, between the fire and fury remarks and this, is that fire and fury, when he first made it, sounded like a threat. This actually sounds like it'll be a reaction if North Korea does something first, Alex.
Yeah, what struck me with those comments was this is a strict red line with regards to Guam, which North Korea has said that it will fire 4 missiles into the waters of Guam. So it really does, it's unclear whether the president meant if they fired missiles that were to hit Guam, but it was, to me, pretty stark there, what he said, that if they hit Guam, it would be they would exact a price on Guam that would be severe. North Korea would see something that the world has never seen. It's similar to his fire and fury comments, but specifically now drawing that line at firing missiles towards Guam.
And we know, Amna, right before that, the president has obviously been bringing most of his senior staff, his military advisors, up to New Jersey to meet with him. He was just in that long briefing. So, when we first heard these fire and fury statements, our understanding from sources is that the president went a little bit rogue here, that he made that statement without really going around talking to the National Security Council. It would be pretty surprising if the president did this yet again, tripling down after just meeting with his top advisors.
So, Catherine Falders, over to you with the president. Catherine, if you can hear me now, just weigh in on that if you can. Do we know anything about how vetted some of these answers were before President Trump spoke?
I think John Santucci really hit the nail on the head there. There was that reporting before that, yeah, some of his top advisors were taken aback by his fire and fury comments. We knew behind the scenes that's how he was feeling, that rhetoric had been discussed. We obviously saw him double down on it today. But the fact that he has a CIA director, Mike Pompeo, up here, he has McMaster up here, he gave these statements today with them right by his side after the security briefing. I agree with John. It would be very difficult to believe that, these comments weren't vetted. I'm sure they weren't totally scripted. As you saw, he brought the press pool in there for 20 minutes of questions. He was obviously, to me at least, in what Alex said and what John said, prepared to get those questions and really double down on the rhetoric. So, I mean, I would be surprised, as John notes, if reports come out or if we learn that it was totally off the cuff and he didn't know. He knew exactly what he was saying. What Alex said, it was more targeted towards Guam. He left the door open. He said, you'll see, you'll see. He didn't answer the question about a preemptive military strike. When we've asked him before about military action, he says, you'll soon find out. So still left the door open there, but was definitely more targeted and has been meeting with his top advisors all day. So definitely something I'd say was probably discussed, Amna.
And Stephanie, I'd love to get your take on this too. This is something in relation to the questions about the nuclear arsenal and the threat from North Korea. President Trump was talking about additional funding going towards some of these anti-missile efforts. He said many billions of dollars that will be going into some of these things. What do we know about any plans that could be in the pipeline for that, or where that might go?
Well, we haven't heard just yet, but we do know that the defense budget is pretty hefty. And we've heard from Secretary of Defense Mattis that he has the U.S., South Korea, China, Japan, they have wanted to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, and in North Korea is the odd man out. But we have to keep in mind that we have thousands and thousands of U.S. troops in that region, in South Korea, in Japan, and in Guam. And North Korea and Kim Jong-un have been surrounded by U.S. military for years and years, and they want to feel as though they're the powerhouse. This has been the constant theme for the last decade or so. And now they want to prove more than ever that they can defend themselves. And it's with these new provocations from the U.S. and from North Korea, whether or not, President Trump can back this up, it'll be interesting to see, but it is obvious that North Korea's leader is not backing down. He is not backing down from this, and he's continuing to fire back verbally. And of course, this new threat of firing missiles toward Guam in mid-August, it is scary. It is a very scary time, but here at the Pentagon, it is the same message that we've heard, that they are trying to go at this diplomatically, and right now there is no plan to be the first to launch that punch.
All right, let's move on from North Korea now, if you don't mind, guys. There's a lot to cover here. It's 20 minutes, and he covered probably at least a dozen different topics by my notes here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Amna, we ran out of paper down here in the D.C. Bureau.
Pennsylvania.
It was like Trump bingo. We were just counting off the topics, everything. He said everything. It was like watching a Trump rally.
I lost track.
Except he was answering questions from reporters.
I need the N. You still need the G. We're missing letters here, but we're getting close.
Catherine, I can see, is actually going through her notes right there. But guys, let's talk about some of his comments about his own cabinet, because this gives us a little bit of insight into how things are working. General Kelly got a bit of a name check. So did Mike Pompeo, a CIA director. He was asked about Jeff Sessions. And Alex and John, why don't you take this first, and then everybody feel free to jump in. His answer, this guy has no poker face, right? He's basically said, yeah, it is what it is, my relationship with Sessions, which is not exactly a resounding endorsement.
No, I mean, but I got to be honest with you, on the scale of where he's been on Jeff Sessions, we were at a 1.5 today compared to the 100,000 we've been hitting for the past. I mean, saying that he was been disappointed in Sessions, that he never would have made him Attorney General if he was going to recuse himself from the Russia investigation, to basically saying today, it is what it is. We are where we are. I'm happy he's going after the leaks, but big difference from where this has been. I mean, we were both looking at each other during and saying, is he talking about Sessions with that? Because it was a little nice. It was a little gentle, actually, for once.
That's what I was thinking. If I'm Jeff Sessions right now, I feel more job security than I've felt probably in the past month. And another person whose remarks that the president spoke about that struck me was H.R. McMaster.
Yeah.
We've been following this kind of back and forth between the Bannon wing of the White House and the McMaster wing of the White House. And there's been some doubt. There's been some media reports that have suggested that he could be in hot water with the president. But it seems that the president had full confidence in him.
I mean, I'm not saying he liked and respected him. He's a good guy. He absolutely has confidence in him. For the infighting in the White House going on, that was a reigning endorsement from the president, basically saying, hands off my national security advisor. He's doing well. The one person also that he was cheering on, Amna, as you mentioned, is General John Kelly, his new chief of staff, who's obviously moved over from DHS. The one thing that we've been noticing down here today, as I'm sure you did, General Kelly's on the cover of Time magazine today.
Yes, he is.
That is not a good thing for General John Kelly.
Why is that?
Anyone that takes the spotlight away from Donald Trump is a problem. Realize, Amna, this is a man that when he was working at a Trump tower had 3 rows of magazine covers that had his face on it. And this is a guy that cares about him being right there in the spotlight. So when Bannon was out there on the cover of Time, being called President Bannon on Saturday Night Live, that didn't bode well for him. For John Kelly,
John,
be a little careful.
And we saw the Washington Post even had him, he forged a Time cover of himself and put it up in one of his golf clubs. And yeah, after Bannon was on the cover, I think that was February, he publicly berated him in the middle of a cabinet
meeting. Threw him
meeting.
off the plane.
Yeah.
Threw him off Air Force One.
It's pretty incredible.
I think, Catherine, you were trying to chime in too, right?
No, I was going to say, remember when Jared was on the cover and he was in the headlines and the president made that remark at the cabinet meeting? What did he say? He says, he's getting more famous than I am now. Not obviously a joke and not an attack against Jared, but it's funny how they're all three on the cover of Time, John. But I'd have to say, that Jeff Sessions comment, I was kind of scratching my head too. Was he talking about his attorney general? Was he talking about Kelly? Who was he talking about? I had to go back and listen to the tape, and I said, wow, like saying it's fine for their relationship, that's a complete 180. What Alex said, you know, he has a heck of a lot of job security now, but as we know, this can change in the next hour, in the next week, in the next day. I mean, you never know, but it seems like at least the praise that he gave for the people sitting around him today. And he went on about Sessions too. He said, you know, it's fine. It is what it is. He's done good things on the border, yada, yada. But again, big day for the AG, I'd say.
Big day for him. And also getting, weighing in right there on Paul Manafort, a former Trump team member, right? This is the first time we've really heard from the president since we learned Manafort's house was raided by the FBI late last month. And that, of course, is in relation to the special investigation being led by Bob Mueller. We also heard Trump weigh in on that. Catherine, why don't you take it first there? What'd you make of what President Trump had to say on both those fronts, on Manafort and on Mueller?
You know, I think what he said on Mueller is he said, I've only read through media reports that, you know, I'm thinking about dismissing him. He says, I haven't really given it any thought. And I'll let Santucci take this away in a second because he's reported out this story. But he said that he was surprised to see that the FBI had raided Paul Manafort's home and commented a little bit on that. But I also think what's striking is we saw a report earlier from one of his own lawyers, John Dowd, who wrote an email basically slamming Mueller for this. And I spoke to Dowd earlier, who basically confirmed those comments to me. But it's the first time we heard from the president. He said it was this was pretty harsh, he said. And I found the Mueller comment pretty striking because the White House really hasn't ruled this out. They have said at this time we're not considering it. You know, he hasn't considered this at all. But from the president to hear such a firm tone on that, and from his advisors who say, look, we respect this process. We respect what Mueller's doing. We don't think anything's there. We think this is a phony investigation. We think it's a witch hunt. But he did reiterate, I guess, that, you know, he hasn't given it any thought to dismiss it. But John, I'd like to hear, you had a lot of that, you know, good color from the reporting out of Paul Manafort in the raid. Are you hearing anything else from his spokespeople, from his aides, from the president?
No, I mean, from the president, I got to be honest with you, Catherine. I was writing down, as Alex knows, this didn't really fit my bingo box, but the fact that Paul Manafort was there for a short time and had not really a lot of involvement in my campaign. Paul Manafort planned the Republican National Convention. Paul Manafort was
exactly.
But he's the one that got the delegates that made Donald Trump the Republican nominee. I mean, like, you know, that doesn't really jive. I mean, that doesn't really add up there. That's a little bit of a problem.
I think that what I heard there that kind of struck out to me was that he was kind of cozying up to him by defending him against Mueller, by repeating what we heard his counsel say, that what they saw what Mueller did by raiding his home sent a strong signal. This kind of goes back to the root of what the Trump administration sees this probe as, which is purely politically motivated and something that discredits his win in the election. And so it was kind of rare to hear him actually weigh in on Manafort since taking the presidency, because Manafort's been somebody that's we've read in the papers, but Trump has largely been silent on, and he defended him similar to how we've heard him defend Flynn.
Yeah, I mean, he's never.
Yeah, I thought that was
Paul
striking.
Manafort.
He distanced himself. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he never weighs in on him. Called him a decent man. You know, but again, I do think Amna, it is pretty striking. Just making, as Alex says, cozying up a bit, but making that separation that he wasn't there for a while. Manafort came in at a very pivotal time for the Donald Trump campaign, and ultimately is the one you could argue that helped make him the victor and bring those delegates to Ohio.
So here's the other point of consistency with the president. He once again attacked the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, expressing, quite frankly, like the same frustration a lot of people had, which was, I got into office after hearing repeal and replace, and I said, where's the plan? And there is no plan. Now we've seen Mitch McConnell strike back, kind of throw in some DC shade by saying, look, I think the man had excessive expectations about how legislation works, but it doesn't look like this feud is going to be solved anytime soon. Am I right?
I don't think so. Does that fit you? I don't.
I mean, the reporters had to ask him if he'd reach out to his wife, Elaine Chao, who's the transportation secretary, and if she could maybe get in the middle of it and mediate the issues they have. But what the president said was, "I'm very disappointed in Mitch McConnell." And whenever we've heard the president say that, it's usually been about his cabinet members. So the president right here is really trying to distance himself from that healthcare vote. I mean, he obviously sees how it's really affected the swell of base support that he really relies on and his administration relies on.
But even going back to the tweets earlier today, the fact that he said, Mitch, get back to work, Mitch, go back to Washington, that really is the key here, that he feels that the Senate did not work hard enough for him to get things done. And the question, Amna, that he was posed in the first time around reporters today, if he thought that Mitch McConnell should step aside as the leader of the Senate, was, do you think just that? President said, well, if he can't get health care done, if he can't get tax reform done, if he can't get infrastructure done, well, then ask me that question. So pretty tough words for a person that's been pretty loyal to him.
Sorry, Catherine, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Mitch McConnell has his hands tied here, right? He's now been, the president says he's disappointed in him. He can't get health care through. But the reality is, this is a collective sport. The former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, even made this point, saying the president just can't sit here on the sidelines and say, go Republicans in the Senate, who he commonly refers to as they, and not we, distancing himself from the party there. So he's disappointed in Mitch McConnell and wants him to move forward on his tax plan and infrastructure, but the reality is those bills aren't in place. There's nothing to move forward on that. So he kind of has his hands tied there.
There's a lot of wait and see there, I think, in the stream of other wait and sees. But hey, before we go, Steph, I want to get your take on something that came up, was a huge story when it first bubbled up for about 48 hours, and then it kind of trickled away. But it's the first time we've heard the president weigh in on it again, and that is his tweet about potentially banning all transgender Americans from the American military. He was asked about it today. What did you make of his response?
It was very interesting. I mean, we here at the Pentagon have been asking U.S. officials here if they have gotten any guidance from the White House on this, if this is now official policy where transgender people can no longer serve. And what we keep hearing here is that they're waiting for White House guidance on this. So it was really interesting to hear the president say just a few moments ago that the military is working on it. Well, as far as we know, they don't really know what they're working on. We heard from General Dunford, who said the policy is unchanged. So there's been no movement in that arena just yet. But really interesting to hear the president say that the military is working on it. But as of today, we were asking those questions this morning. They have not gotten the guidance. They tell us that they have not gotten the guidance that they need from the White House to move forward on any type of ban or any type of proposal to ban the transgender community. So speaking of disappointments, we've heard from plenty of advocacy groups in the transgender community who have expressed their disappointment with the president's recent tweets saying that transgender people would not be allowed to serve. And keep in mind, there are about 11,000 transgender people who are currently serving who they don't know what to do. A lot of them, some of them that I've spoken with have said that they've spoken with their commanders who have reassured them that, hey, keep doing your job. You're still in the military. This is not official just yet. These are tweets from the president. Sure, the White House has said that the president's tweets are considered official statements. However, here at the Pentagon, there is no movement toward changing that policy that transgender people can indeed serve in the military.
All right, so a little bit of uncertainty there. We'll be sure to follow up on as well. And guys, just to note before we go, speaking of uncertainty, stock markets today closed down after a couple of weeks of steady climbing. The Dow actually closed down about 200 points. And the VIX, which is considered the best gauge of fear in the market, hit its highest level since May. So that kind of gives everybody a sense of where we are right now. And thank you to all of you for joining us out there. Alex Mallon, John Santucci, Catherine Falders, and Stephanie Ramos. And thanks to you guys at home for watching as well. For more on all of these topics, head over to abcnews.com anytime for the latest. For now, I'm Amna Nawaz, and I'll see you back here soon.